Greetings, geeks. Welcome to episode, is this 418 of Geeks in Space? I'm Rob Commander Taco Malda, and I am here today with a gaggle of great geeks gathering together to greet you. I've got Chris DeBona.
Hello, everybody.
RobRobChris.
I know you haven't seen me for a while. I am back.
Hi, I was always here.
I mean, except for the parts where you were in the hospital, but you know.
Yeah,
You were sick, man.
except for those parts. But I was here in spirit.
And I don't know what you're doing internet-wise, but you have never looked so crisp
Right?
and sparkly on a hangout.
He's beautiful. I can see individual hairs on his beard.
Yeah, it's just my new morning routine. That's all.
Are you exfoliating?
Are you using a foundation or?
No, I've been using, every morning I've been casting mind blank to keep myself from being divined, and I'm just not doing it anymore. So.
Oh wow! Are you taking like more showers because of the cold and stuff and steaming up?
Actually, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's good for the.
It has nothing to do with bandwidth, but
Yeah.
for your healthy glow.
It's a new conditioner.
Okay, that's nice. Do you condition your beard when you shower?
Don't you?
I know the answer to this already.
Oh, come on!
Do you still use the cool beard oil?
I'm not really a beard oil aficionado,
You got to add a little bit every now and again.
Okay.
I'm not saying you have to do it every day.
Do steak drippings count as beard oil?
They do. Any sort of emulsified fat, or something like butter would work too.
I've been experimenting with
oil because it's got a very high smoke point.
What's that?
I use avocado oil because it's got a high smoke point.
That's not a bad idea. I'm not a huge fan of avocado oil. I used it to season some pans, though. It worked out okay, So
actually, avocado oil has become my go-to oil for most tasks that involve small amounts of oil, simply because I'm much less likely to cause a massive smoke bomb to occur in my kitchen.
Yeah.
So let's see here. As far as a tech update, I have a Windows machine on my desk right now. And
which one is it?
It's still the NUC, but it's got like a monitor connected to it and a keyboard and a mouse. So I have literally spent the last week relearning how to use Windows, which has been.
Is that your way of saying that there's probably a mouse pointer pointing right at Rob or Mai's head right now in the broadcast?
No, there's not. Looking.
I'm gonna check.
You do that, man. You go check our stream. I can change the message if you don't like call him JL again. It's totally fine, but that leads me into Picard.
I'm sorry, that's a really fun. That I have to tell you, I love that quote. So I'm gonna say please keep it because it's one. So I posted this thing on the twits where I was like, maybe Avenue 5 is our warning to take Picard and like it. Because Avenue 5 is so bad. But then I watched it again. And I was like,
yeah, I don't think Picard is any worse than any of the worst Next Generations or anything.
No, I agree with you. But there were some really bad Next Generations and Voyagers, man.
There absolutely were. There were some really good ones too, but
there's some great ones.
Yeah. Those shows really they have the different ratio, but you have the good third, the bad third, and the great third.
Yeah.
And I feel like most of those shows have that, but I feel like in the case of Voyager, it's more like a bad half.
I think it's bad 2/3, but
you might be right. Well, but if it's a bad half, then it's just.
So I should clarify for the Voyager nerds paying attention, none of them. Well, actually, I guess Frasier. It's like my Voyager watching guide is no holodeck episodes, no Captain Protons,
no time travel.
No time travel, and then you're left like 6 episodes, and they're really good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what is that? About a dozen episodes after that?
Nope.
And they're so inconsistent about time and distance and speed. I'm just like, and food, and then we get into that whole discussion of the 3 power supplies, one for life support, one for the holodeck, one for the warp core, and it's like, really? Okay, so insert rant there. Let's keep going about Picard. My major disappointment in Picard is. So we have this Romulan, refugee planet, right? And they've got this glorious, perfect, beautiful shield around it. And I'm like, first of all, who put the shield in, right? And then they're surrounded by chaos and people ripping off birds of prey. it's you know what it feels like? It feels like Picard is actually like the later seasons of Andromeda that were really, really bad. You know, like because Andromeda started out okay, but the idea was they were rebuilding the Federation or whatever, right? But Picard, it's like they're like, you know, this is the decline. The Federation has gone on the decline. There's a lawless universe, and there's just like randos going around shooting everybody.
Well,
And it's
we
like,
talked about it a little bit in the last episode that we did, and I think what the deal is they are. Do you remember how every movie in the 90s was a gritty, dark movie after The Crow came out?
yeah, right.
I kind of feel like that is what they're trying to do. This is the darkening that started with Deep Space Nine and some of the later Next Generation episodes, and even a little bit with Discovery, that they've decided now we're going to add some grit to Star Trek because that's what it needs. And that's what we get now, where people are buying old Birds of Prey. And I do kind of like what they've done with the Romulan refugees as far as the Borg cube. I think what they're trying to set up with that.
Yeah, I
kinda
mean,
think
that's actually
neat.
very Romulan. The Romulans are like, look, tech, we're going to steal it and use it to kill people. I mean, that's very in character for Romulans.
I think the problem that most people who are real diehard Trek fans have with Picard is a tonal one. You know, it goes away from the Federation doesn't need money. It's everyone gets what they need. It's perfect. There's free share of science and ideas and yada yada yada. And now they're trying to make it gritty again.
Well, I read another really good criticism of the modern Star Trek, and this isn't exclusive to Picard. It's definitely one that goes back even to late Discovery. But basically, because every episode is part of a 10-episode story arc, if you find a bad episode, it taints your joy for the next episode. And if there's a really bad episode, it can turn you off for the entire story arc. Whereas the Next Generation, besides a few two-parters and some minor character development, every episode is essentially self-contained. And they really held true with that really until like maybe the last 2 seasons of Deep Space Nine.
Or even the Next Generation, where they had, you know, season-long arcs of bad guys at least, you know. So
I mean, so the one thing I will say is that at least in this week's episode of Picard, and not the one that theoretically is airing today, which I haven't seen yet, but in the one from last Thursday or Friday, you had an entire crew. They were on a spaceship. They went to a place. They had a mission where the star of the show went to the place. They wore costumes. They did an adventurous thing. I actually personally found Picard's little accent thing like to be knocked down hilarious. It was funny.
Knockdown community theater, not funny.
Totally.
And like the damn feather in Ramos's hat, I'm like, what is going on? Why is he playing Puss in Boots?
I felt like that was the joke, and I enjoyed it.
So my problem with this is I've got a lot of problems with this episode, but like every time I watch Picard, I just think there's somebody. So you know, remember how we talked about Disney has the character's voice department, and basically they run everything through there to make sure that it's being consistent with the character. Mm-hmm. It's like those people all got fired.
Well, no, I think that what it is that person is actually Patrick Stewart. And he has one very good perspective on what that character is, but that character alone does not a TV show make.
But it's just so wrong.
I hear you, man. You know what they need, though? They need a fat captain.
Yeah.
Do you know why they need a fat captain?
Persuasive.
Because overweight men are more persuasive.
It's true. Science has confirmed
I did not see this story. I'm very charmed by it, though, as a substantial gentleman. So
yeah, science has confirmed that overweight men are deemed more persuasive by the general public than.
Well, how overweight should I be eating more? This is my question.
See, I don't know. I wonder that too. Like if there's degrees. Like if eventually you reach critical mass where you can't move, then everyone will believe what you say, no matter how ridiculous. That seems unlikely to me.
What's that, Rob?
That might explain Honey Boo Boo's mom. Like people are just persuaded by her, or does it not apply to women?
No, it was men. In fact, it was the opposite for women,
Really?
if I remember correctly. Now that last bit of information could be completely made up, so you should probably read the story.
But I mean,
But
I don't know if you noticed, but the world's a little sexist.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it was the opposite for women.
I mean, we haven't had a woman on Geeks in Space since in like 50 episodes.
Well, I don't know. Kathleen sort of popped by a couple episodes ago.
She does kind of. She's eavesdropping through the door right now.
Oh well, she'd always be welcome.
I understand, but it's a snow day, so I have 2 children in my living room.
Yeah, that's something.
That's a different thing. So for Lent, are you guys giving up anything?
The concept that some space deity can tell me what I can or cannot do so that I can get into some fictional afterlife, that's what I'm giving up.
Well, the Pope suggests that you give up trolling.
No way.
I don't know, man. That's a lot to ask. How about this? If they give up child abuse, I'll give up trolling.
So what you've basically done since I mentioned the Pope is done nothing but troll Catholics. So I gotta tell you, man.
I was baptized Catholic.
Also,
so...
I was kind of wondering if God really is strictly space-based. I mean, he exists in space, sure, but...
Listen, actually, what we do know, Rob, is he's not, because he doesn't exist.
Oh, all right.
Oh, that would explain it.
So he might as well exist in this can of Diet Coke from my perspective.
Kazuhisa Hashimoto, creator of the Konami Code, has died.
Yeah.
He unfortunately was unable to give himself more lives. And
this is the obvious joke.
Being known for that.
That's why you can't wait until you think you need it. You got to do it. If you're feeling a little sick, you do the code.
If you're down to like 3% health points, you got to do it. You have to be poised and ready.
Skip lunch, do the code just in case. You never know.
I don't know when I'm going to eat next.
I don't know. There are worse things to be remembered for.
Oh, absolutely.
That's pretty all right. And we'd be saying a different thing if he died at 76 than.
No,
61.
we wouldn't. We'd be saying the exact same thing. Are you kidding?
No, because at 61, you're kind of just like, ooh, you kind of got the short end of.
I can smell 61 from where I'm living.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like if you exceed the expected life expectancy for your area, then we celebrate. And if you miss it, especially by this guy missed it by 15 years. I mean, that's
heartbreaking. Well, I mean, the thing, like having this whole thing happen on my shoulder, it's like, oh, yeah, I guess I am getting older. It's like, this wouldn't have happened earlier. Like I was in this really bad ski wreck when I was, I think, 16. And it's like my bones were made of rubber. It's like, yeah, they're fine. I mean, it's funny because I still feel that injury if I don't work out in my knee, from 16. But I guess what I'm saying is 61 doesn't sound that far away to me.
Right.
Crap, I need to persuade myself to lose some weight and work out.
No, then you'll lose your persuasive abilities.
Yeah.
I can't work at Google forever. At some point I
write down the persuasive fat man for my I'm trying to figure out what the tagline should be for next week's episode. I kind of like the persuasive fat man.
The stout believability of life.
That's right. So they confirmed that that guy that was killed in the Tesla crash was playing video games.
Of course.
Can I? So here's the thing. This happened 3 miles from here.
Yeah.
I remember when I drove to work that day, I decided to take this sort of frontage road on the highway to get to work because I was just like, I don't want to deal with the meter lights or whatever. And by the time I got to work, it was a solid brake lights all the way to where the accident happened. And where the accident happened, you have to realize is that it's this area where a lot of there's a flyway and then there's 2 things and people are always getting into wrecks there. And it was shut down for 7 hours, right? So the battery pack caught fire. They sent him off to the hospital at some point. The battery pack caught fire. They ended up having to get someone from Tesla's factory in Fremont to come and help them figure out how to put it out. I mean, this was just, it was a disaster. And remember, we're talking 7 hours at the intersection of 101 and 85. So every Facebook employee, every Apple employee, every Google employee, it was a nightmare until like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I remember watching this going, what the hell is going on? So I'm taking surface streets back home, but I'm like, what is going on 101? And they're like, yeah, Tesla hit the barrier and caught on fire, and that was it. You know, there was like 7 fire trucks, and then, you know, Tesla was already scrambling. They're like, oh, this clearly wasn't our fault. They hit the barrier. That barrier is really dangerous, and they're right. But then we come to find out the guy not only was playing video games, but he had also filed a bug on the autopilot for doing exactly what killed him 2 months earlier. And it's like, dude, why did you trust it? You know, at that point. And it's like Tesla is definitely, I think they're definitely liable, but like, you don't file a bug on something, get no response, no patch, no update on software, and continue to trust it at such a speed and such a place. It's just, it was the weirdest crash, you know?
You say that, but I was trying to watch a movie using VLC, and I crashed VLC like 30 times, and I didn't file a bug report.
Yeah, but if VLC caused your Audi to steer into a barrier, you might file a little bug with JBF, right?
If VLC was propelling your living room at 60 miles an hour, it might have been different.
So I got my car into the shop, and
what happened?
It's been making this noise for 2 weeks, right? I drove it in on the snow day because that was what my schedule was, and I had to do some shopping anyway. And I drop it off, and I think it got wet because it was snowing and wet and moist. And when it got there, the noise stopped. And for the first time in 2 weeks, and they can't find anything. So I have to go pick up my car, and it's still broken. And that thing is going to just explode. It's 18 years old. It's done well.
I think we talked about this on Tuesday. But Rob, my car, it's been great, but it's sort of had this consistent problem where the distance following cruise controller once in a while will just not work. And right now it's not working. Right?
That's a bad problem.
All right. And so I
can't play video games on the highway.
I can't play exactly. And so I was Googling around and reading the forums, and everyone was talking about this driver contact sensor. Anyway, I finally get to my guys who they're really just these great mechanics, and they're really good guys. And I was like, can you just pull codes? I just want to see what's wrong with it and see if it's worth fixing. And I'm gonna get it fixed. And I get there, of course, and the second I pull up, it starts working again. I'm like, right. You know. And so literally, I was like, okay, all right. So we plugged in, nothing's there, and then I lowered my window, and I got in, and I got it to come back on again, and then off again, and finally we pulled the code, and it was the door contact sensor. So literally, the action of me opening and closing the door when it's warm fixed it, and now, of course, it's busted again. I'm like, you know.
Well,
so
but it's like a $500 part because you have to replace the entire door latch, and I'm like,
of course. Yeah. So Ryan Johnson says that Apple doesn't let bad guys use iPhones in movies.
Shocker.
Yeah, that's what I read.
Right. I kind of I feel like there needs to be like a homework project for somebody to scour movies and find like the opposite case of that. But I mean, I suppose
it's definitely happened.
Yeah, but they're probably just not ones where they have the promotional consideration provided by.
You got it. Well, I mean, you can remember the first Mission Impossible. They had an IBM 701 CS as the bad guy computer, you know, because she would open it up in her briefcase and slide out. Super cool, you know. But yeah.
I was thinking about doing like a series of articles on like uses of bad tech in movies, like not sci-fi stuff, but
it's a little easy, man. Yeah.
Well, things like the Independence Day thing, but I feel like we could probably go deeper and find something more fun out of that. Let's see what else is on my list.
Well, you know, in some ways, I think it's more interesting to find the ones where even today, it's so far out of bounds where literally they just inserted a vocabulary word. So the new Charlie's Angels, which I actually didn't make it through. I just couldn't do it.
I did.
You did?
I did.
But when they're going on about blockchain this and you know, encryption and quantum that, I'm like, you're just saying words.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of more surprising now when people make fundamental errors like that, because it just literally they're telegraphing to the viewer, you know what? We don't care. And you probably don't either. You're probably just here to look at some girl. So how about you shut the hell up? And here's some techno crap.
They just need to say MacGuffin, 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 MacGuffin.
Yeah.
I mean, at least in Avatar, they actually just said unobtainium.
Right?
It's like, I mean, it was deeply disrespectful, but at least they were being honest about it. They're like, you're a big sucker who'll come to any 3D movie that this guy makes. So have some unobtainium. And why don't you give us $15? And it's like, okay, all right. I'll take it on the chin. I get it. But like from Charlie's Angels, no.
So actually, I also found Charlie's Angels to be pretty bad. Although Kristen Stewart was charming in it. I liked what they did with Patrick Stewart, but the whole rest of that movie was just garbage.
It was honestly, even Patrick Stewart, and it was true garbage. I mean, there was nothing redeeming about it. And the thing is, I want to like these people, like the tall one, the short one, and Kristen Stewart. I wanted to like them. I mean, because they all seem like they're charming. They're good-looking people. They're putting in the old college try, but the movie around it was so bad.
Which is weird because if you've ever watched an old episode of Charlie's Angels, it's so good.
I don't know. I mean,
who would have guessed that the movie would be terrible?
The ones with Drew Barrymore, those were actually really fun. They were dumb. They were dumb as a sack of hammers, but at least they were having a good time.
So we've been going back through sort of classic '80s bad movies around here.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of a few. I just watched actually this week's How Did This Get Made movie is Prelude to a Kiss. So I'm getting my Meg Ryan on.
Oh, right. I was thinking The Long Kiss Goodnight, which I really liked.
But I also, my next one is I'm going to watch Joe versus the Volcano again. I haven't seen that in 20 years.
That is not a bad movie. That is a great movie. I will not hear anything different. That is a fantastic movie.
I love that movie.
The way they changed how they filmed each scene, like when you're watching it, like in the office scenes with the bad fluorescence,
yes,
to the the island scenes with the rich, thick colors. I mean, this movie is genius. This is a film course in a movie, and it's got Vigoda.
I think you've heard me say this before, but it's the one movie from my childhood that I remember walking out of.
Why? You didn't like root beer?
15 and didn't know that it was good.
I don't think you can appreciate it as a teenager, to be
That's
perfectly honest with you.
I had no problem enjoying it. But, what was it? It wasn't Fanta or Tab. It was like Dr. Pepper or something.
It was Fanta. It was orange Fanta. Yeah.
A Vigoda trading Fanta for lives. I mean, it was just genius.
So the Criminal Assets Bureau seized 6,000 Bitcoin from somebody, except that he split it up into multiple wallets, printed out the code on pieces of paper, put the paper inside of tubes, like toilet paper tubes or paper towel tubes, and then those tubes got thrown away and put in a landfill. So there are 6,000 Bitcoin.
$50 million worth.
That's a lot of Bitcoin. And they're in the garbage. So, I was thinking, you remember how they went and dug out all those ET cartridges?
Right. Yeah, but the ET cartridges weren't rotting and covered in garbage juice.
Right.
Yeah. And all the letters have been ripped away. So
gross.
No, I was thinking about it because I generated some Bitcoin just to mess around. This was back when it was like 4 cents a Bitcoin, and you could generate them in no time at all or whatever. And I remember I shredded that computer. I dropped it in the e-waste, and it's just gone. I mean, this was 10 whatever years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, there was a pile of Bitcoin there, but honestly, I couldn't do anything with it. So.
I always felt back in the day that, because I was covering Bitcoin on Slashdot, so I never felt that it would be really right for me to try to monkey around with that. So I never did it in the day. And then after I quit, I actually mined some just to learn how it worked and figure out how to register keys and everything. So I still have a Bitcoin, one Bitcoin, that I mined.
I had to be part of the team that answered a subpoena around cryptocurrency here at work.
Ooh.
So I felt like literally if I started messing around with it, it would gum up the works. And so I just decided not to. I didn't need the trouble, But yeah, it was a mess for a while, man, that whole Bitcoin thing. It's still a mess, Financial crimes are being done with Monero, they're being done with Bitcoin, they're being done with all these cryptocurrencies. And it's not a good look for Bitcoin, I gotta tell you.
It's a whole thing, man. I'm fascinated by it. It's one of the most interesting things to me that's happening in technology. It's like right up there with the self-driving car and everything, like these weird things that might not pay out, but they're interesting.
Let me give you the Bitcoin warning. So Bitcoin is catnip, right? It's crypto. I mean, it's cryptography. It's transaction computing. It's got this whole like civil libertarian screw with the authority and the establishment thing going for it. So it's everything we love, right? But then you bring it together and you realize you've wasted an awful lot of time. I think it's actually a honeypot to waste talented nerds' time. It's like, well, I'd rather they play Warcraft, frankly. It's like, yeah, I just, I think of like some of my friends who got really deep into it, and I'm like, you were one of the most promising programmers I've ever met. Now you're working on this thing that has no actual societal benefit.
Did they hodl?
I'm sure they hodled. I'm sure they did really well monetarily for themselves, but it is a loss to computer science how much time has been put into Bitcoin. And let's not even talk about the ecological damage to the planet, from all that energy.
Wow, that's totally true and totally depressing. Hey, I actually played through half of King's Quest 4 with one of my kids this morning. I was pretty excited.
That is exciting. Did you do this on your whole arcade cabinet or?
No, this is I just got a Raspberry Pi hook. I got rid of my arcade cabinet. I sold it to a dude on Craigslist years ago.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it had a 24-inch CRT in it. Which weighed over 100 pounds and was powered by a VA Linux Systems Pentium 2.
A VA Linux Research Systems OSDN.net Pentium 2?
Geek Cloud, ThinkNet, OSTG. Yeah, no, it was, but I got rid of it eventually, because it was also made out of 3/4-inch plywood, and the thing itself weighed, 500 pounds all in. And now
it was very persuasive. Very persuasive.
That's right. You could not, it convinced you of everything.
Yeah.
Just with its sheer girth.
It was very girthy.
No, I just have a little Raspberry Pi now, which is $30 and weighs a quarter pound. Yeah. And it does everything that machine does.
Do you get like one of the touchscreens for it and everything? I mean, when you did your
hook up to TV.
Oh, okay. There you go.
No, it's I mean, that's kind of like what I am doing most of the time with my spare time right now is just trying to set up different video game systems and make it work. I think next on the list is the Amiga. I've never used a real Amiga, and I want to learn about an Amiga.
They were interesting for the time. You could honestly probably buy an Amiga 500 for like $2 on eBay, and go to town.
They're actually kind of collector-y items now.
Really? The 500s?
I don't know, but they tend to be pricey, and they also tend to require you to do things like recap motherboards and stuff because they've been sitting around in somebody's closet for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I had a capacitor failure problem with my garage door opener. Yeah, I ended up replacing the controller with one of those doorbell buttons, for a while. It was very 1980s. It was exciting.
Gentlemen, we've squandered 30 minutes of our time.
I don't think it's wasted or squandered because I got to talk to my friends.
No.
We entertained Jake and we connected and bonded as friends.
That's right.
It's the most important thing. I'll put up the goodbye slide and say my goodbye things. Goodbye to Mr. Chris DeBona.
Goodbye, everybody. Tom, John, Robert.
See ya.
Thank you, audience, for listening to episode 418 of Geeks in Space. I'm Rob Commander Taco Malda. You should click all the buttons that make us win the lottery. And we'll see you some other day.